Well, hey there. It is Tuesday, November 25th. It is about 6 in the evening, West Coast time, and I have a challenge. I have a challenge for you. And it has to do with the exciting new robots that Amazon's coming out with. And I challenge you to wait until the end of the video, where we're going to talk about some action items, possibly some discussions, I hope, and maybe some solutions. So we're going to listen to CNBC put out this corporate approved news story in regards to Amazon's new robots. What you're not going to hear throughout this entire thing, and very few, if any, corporate approved news stories would include the fact that there's about 600,000 jobs that are either going to be displaced and or never happen. Now, with that being said, I'm going to have a couple of things that Amazon talked about at the very end of this because they started getting called out and the story kind of went around. So let's go ahead and listen to this first.
We're here at this giant 2.6 million square foot fulfillment center in Spokane, Washington, where 3.5 million items are handled by 2,500 employees. Now, Amazon says their jobs are about to get easier and safer with a new robot called Vulcan. There's 3 of them, these big red systems next to me that can move items up and down and stuff things into just the right spot in tall yellow bins before they move on to be boxed up. Of the 1 million items here, Amazon says Vulcan can handle 75% of them. It does well with things like books, where Amazon got its start, but that has been difficult for its other robotic arms to pick up using suction type technology. Vulcan changes everything because these paddles integrate what Amazon calls a sense of touch, using a sensor to determine pressure and torque, vastly increasing what types of items the robot can manipulate, as long as it's under 8 pounds. Of course, we asked whether Vulcan will replace traditional warehouse workers who typically do this stowing work, but Amazon says it will simply shift workers into higher skilled positions because its robots will always need human support. Amazon says Vulcan will help worker injury rates too, by handling items on high and low shelves, helping employees keep to the more ergonomic middle shelves.
As a picker, if I had an innovation like this where I could have stayed within my power zone, my days would have been just so much easier.
Right now, Vulcan operates at about the same speed as a human worker, and it's in use here in Spokane and in Germany. Check out the link in bio for the full story.
Okay, so New York Times put out an article, and you can go look this up. Their title was Amazon plans to replace more than 500,000 jobs. Now, in response to this, Amazon did a follow-up, and so I'm just going to read this little blurb. The claim that Amazon is laying off 600,000 workers is inaccurate. Instead, internal documents leaked to the New York Times suggest Amazon robotics teams plans to automate work to avoid hiring over 600,000 jobs it would otherwise need by 2033. Amazon has stated the document doesn't represent its overall hiring strategy and that it plans to hire for the holiday season. Aren't they just so kind? While also investing and upskilling its workforce for new roles. We all know that's bullshit. We all know that middle management is also being replaced by AI. So we have robots on the bottom end, AI in mid-management. Amazon is removing jobs, not making jobs. So this is our challenge. Nobody's coming to save us. Corporate's not going to save us. Our current government's not going to save us. And these big corporations like Amazon's not the only one. AI and robotics are coming for our jobs. A lot of us have already lost jobs because of this technology. The American public has to respond to this if we expect things to get better. So let's jump into the comments down below and start coming up with some ways where we can respond to this and that we can collectively come up with some answers to resolve this issue that we have, here's a couple of ideas that I kick around. Back when the tech bros were still altruistic and the good of all mankind was their mantra, they spoke about universal basic income, UBI. Andrew Yang, who ran for president in 2020, nobody wanted to listen to that at that time. The problem with that is it was short-sighted. The general American public didn't really understand why we should even be concerned about that, because most of the public didn't understand how quickly these technologies were going to move through our business sector. So that's one strategy, is the UBI. And there's a few different ways, and I'm not going to get into details with that here. And there's definitely a few things just with the concept of UBI that would need to be worked out, but it's a starting point and it's a partial answer. So instead of eliminating jobs, not paying taxes, all of this stuff that corporate gets to benefit from while they strip the wealth from our nation, this is at least a step in slowing that process down and building a buffer that the American public can actually work with. And so what are some action items that we can do today as individuals that can collectively become a force multiplier? One of the things that we can do, and a lot of us have already started to do, is participate in the Christmas corporate blackout. It's not a boycott of Christmas, it's a boycott of feeding corporate when corporate's not feeding us. So, shop local, small business, mid-sized business, stay away from large corporate. Extend it out through the beginning of the year and beyond if you would like. I am. So another thing that we can do is we can cancel our Amazon Prime. So no more Amazon Prime, and try not to use them at all. Hard one to do. Gosh, they're so convenient, right? Challenges. But again, corporate's not going to feed us. We need to not feed them. I'm going to leave this with this thought to ponder. I'd love to hear your comments down below, because I know I'm not the only one that has thought this. The reason why these corporations have so much pull over us at this point is because our government has allowed them to monopolize. And Amazon, I would argue, is probably the largest monopoly. So ponder this with me. As interwoven as Amazon is into just about everything in our nation, is it a detriment to the people of this nation to have such a company privately owned? Should this become a national utility service? Amazon has been allowed to be a choke point and an eliminator of small businesses, mid-sized businesses. They control access, they control distribution, flow, pricing. Should one company have that much control over our day-to-day lives, or should this become partially or totally owned and stewarded by the people of this nation instead of a corporate entity? Just a thought. I have a few other thoughts with that. I think that there are key things to the health, welfare, and the ability of us as a people to thrive in this day and age that should not be choke points, and that the people of this nation should own certain things, and those certain things include our natural resources. They should not be privately owned. We should own all of our water, not a corporation, not one person. All of us should own our water. It should be managed by us. I would argue that with electricity as well. There's a few of those. So kind of kick that around a little bit, because some of our basic needs are not being met purely for greed. There's not one person in this country, on this planet, that should go to bed hungry. Not one. Not with this technology. Not in what once was the richest nation in the world. Why do we have people that are allowed to starve? That's a basic. Everybody should have food in their stomach. There's no reason not to other than greed. It's the only reason. Just greed. So just thoughts to ponder. Until next time.